Within this episode, there are some very graphic photos of the dead. These pictures may be disturbing for some viewers. Therefore, viewer discretion is advised. If you watched the last video, you would have heard me mention that so many people died at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. They eventually ended up with 3 cemeteries and were still running out of room. Eventually, they ran out of ideas as to what to do with these bodies. So in frustration, they started selling and giving away the bodies of the dead patients to hospitals for medical research and even to one man who was practicing mummification. Anyway, I'm saying that to say this. It got me thinking about the outdoor forensic anthropology research laboratories, aka human decomposition facilities, aka outdoor labs, aka body farms, and those that we have here in the USA. I am interested in learning what they do there and how it helped law enforcement and us as a nation. Point to note, the phrase body farms came about after author Patricia Cronwell published the forensic novel The Body Farm in 1994. The name stuck and is still used in the media today. So we went in search of knowledge and found one such body farm in Knoxville, Tennessee, the first body farm in the USA. And I just thought, why not share this knowledge with you? So in this video, I'll be sharing what I found out about body farms, which blew my mind. And I will be sharing some amazing videos we took of Knoxville. So stay tuned for that. I am your host, LT Barteck. It was a very windy day in Knoxville, Tennessee when we went in search of the Forensic Anthropology Center at the University of Tennessee. Just so we know, forensic toponymy is a study of how organisms decay and become fossilized or preserved in the paleontological record, or in layman's terms, how the body decays over time. When a decomposing body is found at a crime scene or somewhere in nature, investigators are challenged with trying to determine what exactly happened to that person. That's where forensic toponymy and the body farms lend their knowledge. These researchers / anthropologists are providing a very necessary service, not only to the nation at large, but to law enforcement. And just so you know, they are only accepting donated bodies for their research. The Department of Anthropology at Knoxville possesses one of the largest collections of skeletal remains in the world. At any given time, there are at least 50 decaying bodies on the farm. The mean age of the skeleton donors is in the 50s. They have had donated bodies from age 16 years old all the way up to 101-year-old, and the cremated remains of a second 101-year-old person. An average of 100 bodies are given to the body farms each year. At one point, there were 244 bodies being researched there. On average, it takes 18 months to 2 years before a body farm body ends as bones in the founder William Bass's collection. Until 2010, the program took unclaimed bodies donated by medical examiners. Now all bodies are donated. Some people signed to donate their bodies after their death. At one point, they had 4,500 pre-donors on that list. Family members can also donate a relative's body. The Bass donated skeletal collection also includes some cremated, unpulverized remains and a small collection of infant skeletons from stillbirth at 20 weeks gestation to 2 months old. These bodies don't go to the body farm though. The Bass donated skeleton collection is the largest of the modern people in the United States, with some 1,600 skeletons and room for more. The identities of these persons are not made public so as to protect their identities, and even though the bodies are mostly left outdoors, they are secured behind a very high razor-sharp wire fence and are not accessible to the public. There are also surveillance cameras for added security placed all around the property. And that is why I do not have footage. Those wires were really sharp. Just kidding. You know my self-preservation level is too high to do anything like that. But I do have lots of videos of UT and its surrounding areas, which is really beautiful. It is still fall-like there with all the different colored trees and sparkling lakes. Okay, back on topic. There are currently 7 such body farms located across the USA. The first of these body farms was built at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Tennessee, as I said before. The Tennessee body farm is 2.5 acres. Then there is one located at Western Carolina University in North Carolina. It is 120 miles southwest of the UT's location. Located at Texas State University Freeman's Ranch is the next body farm. This Texas location is the largest such facility in the United States. It sits on 26 acres. Then there is the Southeast Texas Applied Forensic Science Facility located at the Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, Texas. The Complex for Forensic Anthropology Research at the Southern Illinois University in Illinois. The Forensic Investigation Research Station at the Colorado Mesa University in Colorado, and the USF Facility for Outdoor Research and Training, which is part of the Florida Institute for Forensic Anthropology and Applied Science at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Before we go any further, let me explain what they do at these body farms. Well, it allows researchers here and abroad to come and create new methods or validate existing methods of researching the different stages of decomposition of the human body in a variety of controlled settings. Anthropologist William Bass, one of the first people to build this type of research center at UT in 1987, was curious to find out what happens to the human body from the time of death to the point of full decomposition. He wanted to find out about the decomposition process with the aim of gathering knowledge on the cause of death and time of death and relate his findings to law enforcement. This study is called forensic anthropology, more specifically physical anthropology. For the last century, the study has advanced to the point where anthropologists can now evaluate bones to determine if the individual was a male or female, the age of the deceased, their height, if they were healthy, and even their race based on bone structure. The donated bodies usually go through a variety of processes at the body farm. If you were allowed to visit one of these locations, and chances are you won't, but if you are a student of anthropology or an FBI agent on training and end up walking these rounds, you would see naked and semi-naked bodies left out in varying stages of decomposition exposed to the elements. Some would be covered in plastics, others won't. Some would be protected by cage or left out where they can be picked over by scavengers. Some would have insects and some would have maggots. This helped researchers learn more about what remains will look like after all kinds of creatures have had access to the body. Others will be surrounded by shady trees and grass. Some will be buried in shallow or deep graves. In other instances, they will have bodies encased in concrete, left in trailers, locked in the trunk of a car, or submerged underwater. All these scenarios are to mimic crime scenes and the fate of crime victims, which will then provide some factual or data-driven knowledge to help in many forensic cases. The reason why we have these facilities scattered across the country is to have them located at in different physiographic zones, because each zone has specific temperature ranges, precipitation amounts, and different types of animal and plant life, which will affect decomposition. For example, a body placed outside during the summer months in Knoxville will decompose at a different rate than one placed outside at the exact same time in Texas. The rural mountainous surroundings of the facility in Chillouee will foster different changes to the semi-urban environment of the facility in Knoxville, despite being just over an hour drives away. Smaller variables such as plants and animals compound these differences. For example, vulture behavior in the wide open spaces of the Texas facility is different from their activity in the wooded environment of the Appalachian Mountain. The information that these locations provide is necessary when trying to understand the post-depositional context of an individual found in the woods, a field, or a parking lot. Students of anthropology will analyze the stiffness, ballooning, or signs of pathology and trauma. This is done to learn more about the different stages of decomposition and how temperature and humidity can affect the rate of decomposition. A point to note here, not only are students trained in processing the body of the dead, but cadaver finding bloodhounds are also trained at these facilities to find hidden bodies in search and rescue. And prior to the arrival of body farms, most forensic research was conducted on pig carcasses. Pigs are physiologically more similar to humans than many other readily available animals, but humans decompose differently from a pig. Now, with access to those donated bodies, there are now so many things that researchers can learn with actual human cadavers. Another off topic here, we saw this little guy just moving along down the road, and we were curious, so we went to see what it was. Apparently it was a food delivery service. Isn't that interesting? When someone dies, their body goes through 5 stages of decomposition. The first is the fresh stage, which is after a few hours of being dead. As hours pass, the body tends to bloat. Then comes the putrefaction stage. This is caused by 2 stages of chemical decomposition called autolysis and putrefaction, which means the breakdown of tissues by the body's internal chemicals and enzymes. Then active decay. Without going into all the science, is a part where a new microbial system takes over the dead organisms and which now causes the bad odor caused by the decaying human tissue. The maggots take over. Then the advanced decay, where the flesh falls off, the maggots have done most of their jobs and are almost gone. Then finally the skeleton. Each of these stages attract different organisms. By collecting the insects and seeing where they are in their life cycle, researchers can usually determine an accurate time of death. Forensic scientists can also decipher where geographically the body has been by examining bugs found on it.
Suicide.
I think so, huh?
You get the sleeping bag for easy cleanup, bathtub to catch the bullet, open window so the stench alerts the neighbors. God bless them. Jeez.
Pupa stage 3.
English. I'm not an entomologist either.
The 3rd stage of larva metamorphosis. This guy's been dead 7 days.
At the body farm in Knoxville, when the body has been completely decomposed and only its bones remain, the skeleton is then cleaned. This involves sometimes boiling off the remaining flesh. Then the bones are inventoried and labeled. It's then packed in a 3.5-foot-long cardboard box and transported to the W.M. Bass donated skeletal collection at UT's Stronghold, where the skeleton is placed into the UTK donated skeletal collection. After the bones are archived, they are still useful to researchers and scientists who come to study the bones and see what they tell them. Their fields of study includes biology, forensics, anthropology, dentistry, genetics, and biomedicine. Fun stuff, huh? Bet you didn't think this channel was going to get so icky. Anyway, the study has helped solve countless cases, but the one that got anthropologist William Bass to push start the first anthropological research facility at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee, was this very interesting case. Using the facts, I will tell the story of William Bass's case and how I saw it happen. Why, you ask? Well, that is what my brain does. Now, Dr. William M. Bass had just sat down in the small department's lunchroom to have his lunch. He laid out his sandwich on a napkin and popped open a can of pop. He took a bite of the sandwich. It was tasty. He chewed, enjoying the flavors as it hit his taste buds. Then he unfolded the newspaper he had picked up from the front door early this morning before coming on campus. It was December 1977. He glanced over the pages to see what would catch his eye, but something else did. In his peripheral, he saw his assistant half running, half walking towards him. He sighed. She was a good assistant and would ward off even the devil himself. It would mean not disturbing his lunch. So when he saw her coming towards him, he knew it was something important. He slowly folded the newspaper, timing her arrival, and sat looking at her, waiting for her to catch her breath. He placed the paper on the table, crossed his legs, and folded his arms. "Mr. Bass, I have the Nashville police on the phone. They need you urgently." Jumping to his feet, William pointed towards his lunch. "Take care of that for me, please," he said while pushing past her to go take the call in his office. Taking the phone off hold, he calmly said into the receiver, "Hello?" The captain of the Nashville Police Department was talking to someone in the background. Upon hearing Bass's voice on the other end of the line, he responded, "Mr. William Bass?" "Yes, that's me," William responded. "The Nashville Police Department needs your expertise on a matter. We just got a report of a body dump, desecration, not sure yet. We need to estimate this man's time of death so we can get some knowledge to help us figure out who he was, how he died, and who is responsible for his death." "Sure. You're about 3.5 hours away. I could be there this afternoon." "Great. See you then." With that, the captain ended the call. Bell stood looking at the phone for a second with a slight frown on his face. He wondered what this was about and how best to help them. A million thoughts ran through his head, from the tools he needed to carry down to if he had enough gas or if he needed to stop and fill up first. Suddenly, he was startled out of his reverie when his assistant spoke behind him. "What was that about, Will?" "They need me in Nashville today. Cancel all my appointments. I'll be back tonight or tomorrow morning. But first I have to head home to grab a few things." "Okay, be safe," she said. Soon William was packed and driving down 40, heading towards Nashville. He arrived late afternoon and went directly to the cemetery. The sun was already setting. Bass found the man's corpse still had bits of clothing on it, pieces of a tuxedo, shirt, pants, a vest, a coat, and a white glove still on his right hand. The body wasn't exceptionally decomposed. Will could still ID his intestines, and there was even some flesh still on his bones. William inspected the body while the officers stood by expectantly. After a few minutes, Will stood up and went over to the captain. "Upon initial inspection, I think this man is somewhere between 25 and 28 years old and had been dead for a few months to a year." But a few days later, when more evidence came in, enough so that the officers could identify the man, They found that he was a 26-year-old colonel by the name of William Mabry Shy, and Colonel Shy had been dead for more than a century. He had been dead for 113 years. He had died during the Civil War and was then embalmed. It was speculated that a good friend of the family by the name of Dr. Cliff, who was skilled at embalming, had embalmed him, and his family had then buried him in a cast iron coffin. The combination of those two things slowed down the decomposition of the body, but then grave robbers dug him up. For Bass, as an anthropologist, this was a pivotal moment. He saw it as a blatant example of the importance of understanding how different circumstances like the weather or the type of burial affect decomposition. So in 1981, Bass and the University of Tennessee, Knoxville officially established the first anthropological research facility so that he could study in depth how temperature, atmosphere, time, location, and all that affects the breakdown of the human body. So, have there been other evidence of how this study has helped? Answer is yes. Over the past 45 years, UT's Body Farm has received the remains of about 70 unidentified individuals. They have worked to resolve these cold cases for the past 10 years and so far have been able to successfully identify 20 individuals. Forensic anthropologists often provide voices for the deceased, uncovering clues from remains that can often crack the case. Their research can prove where the body has been, how long it has been there, how the person died, and much more. They can be instrumental in solving murder cases and serving justice. Put another way, they help uncover secrets that are normally taken to the grave. On the matter of FBI, since 1999, the FBI has hosted its annual Recovery of Human Remains course each year at the Body Farms. Agents from the FBI's Evidence Research Team Unit, or ERTU, have to learn forensic anthropology, learning the slow and methodical process of detecting unrecorded remote burials and excavating challenging crime scenes. After completing the course, the FBI members return to their field offices with a new and improved expertise. This knowledge makes them an asset when deployed on the ground at complex crime scenes, including mass shooting, cold case homicides, and stateside terrorist attack like Ground Zero on 9/11 or the finish line at the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. The ERTU and forensic experts also get deployed overseas to assist other governments and authorities in evidence collections after catastrophic world events, including war crime killing fields, Al-Shabaab bombing across Africa, and in the Middle East, where explosive analysis needs to be performed. Another case where the UT's Forensic Anthropology Center and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation helped to solve a case is the one involving a 30-year-old missing Indiana woman. The anthropologists processed her remains and found that it was that of an Indiana woman who had been missing for over 30 years. Her name was Tina Marie Farmer. She was found dead on Interstate 75 near Jellicoe in Campbell County, Tennessee. At that time, investigators only recorded her fingerprints and several of her physical features, including eye and ear color. When law enforcement could not identify her, they brought the body to UT's Anthropology Research Facility. Their researchers helped estimate she was 20 years old at the time of her death. Then they placed her skeletal remains in the laboratory's collection. It wasn't until 30 years later, when TBI investigators decided to follow a lead from a blog about missing persons, that they were able to match the fingerprints with those of a person arrested in 1983 in Marion County, Indiana. That's how she went from Jane Doe to Tina Marie Kenny Farmer. Authorities think She was one of the victims associated with the red-headed murders, a series of unsolved crimes that took place in southern states between 1978 and 1992. In another case, when skeletal remains were discovered, a group of 5 anthropologists from the LSU FACES laboratory on the college campus in Baton Rouge lab helped to crack the case to identify who that person was and how they died. They also helped to solve a cold case in Rapids Parish from 1980, the murder of 17-year-old Donna Gail Brazel. Using her skull, they made a clay facial approximation that was used to identify her nearly 40 years later. The skeletal remains were discovered on November 5, 1980, in Gardner in a wooded area off of Nichols Cemetery Road. There was no immediate matches to any missing person report. The little information that was known was that the victim was possibly a white female between 16 and 21 years of age and had possibly been exposed to the elements for 2 months. Then in 2001, the body of a Wisconsin murdered man was found by hunters inside the forest close to Western Carolina campus. The victim's son was a past student at Western Carolina University. He was found guilty for killing his father in the summer of 1998. The head of the FBI office in Asheville, Rick Shrine, says his office handles 4 to 6 body recoveries each year. These bodies are found in the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians Reservation, among others. Hats off to those anthropologists and the work they are doing, the FBI for training in the science, and thanks to the people who donate their bodies to this study. Really, thank you. Well, that will be it for now. This was all very interesting to me, and I hope it was to you too. I also hope I didn't gross you out too much, but this is all real. Anyway, if you're still here, thanks for sticking with me thus far. I hope you reward my efforts by clicking the like button. If you have not done so yet and want to come along with me on my travels, you can only get to do so by subscribing and clicking that bell for all notifications. Now go ahead and share this video with someone whom you think will find it interesting, and drop a comment telling me what you think about these body farms. As usual, take care of yourself and others, and I will catch you on my next weekly video. Love you. Bye.